little bit to talk about relationships. So today we're going to talk about the relationships which apply at work, at home, um, outside of home and outside of work, and the basic human needs. There is a great there is a great relationship between the basic human need and the quality of the relationship. Now, how does that work? It works by, got less to click here. Okay. How does it work? Well, as humans, we all have needs. We have basic needs. And Abraham Maslow identified these needs as 5 different levels of needs, right? And at the very first level, we have the biological and physiological needs. The second level, we have safety needs. This is where the home, the shelter, the work, having a job to pay the bills comes in. Then we have social needs, where a family, friendship, belonging comes in. And at the fourth level, that's where respect, connection, belonging, friendship comes in. And at fifth level, we have the self-actualization needs. And what happens very, very often in relationship, well, especially at work, because that's why we don't get along with the boss, because of this basic needs, because everybody at work has different needs depending on their task, right? But the same goes for at home. And throughout the day, we go through various levels of needs throughout the day. Yeah, because, well, there's many reasons. There's many reasons for that, and I need to keep it simple. So on the biological and physiological needs, on the basic level, level 1, it's just as that biological and physiological, right? Air, water, food, sleep, eat, excrete, homeostasis, process what you eat and what you breathe. And if you need to procreate, then sex will be a basic biological need. Other than that, if you don't need to procreate, it's not a need, right? On a second level, on a level of safety, we need to have safety over our physical body. Yeah? And this is a big topic because a lot of people don't prioritize this very well. And we have experienced a lot of we are experiencing a lot of safety issue with the rise in gun violence and hatred lately. But we have been, the whole humanity has gone through a huge lesson in safety through the pandemic. Well, a lot of people don't like hearing this way, but safety, it was the number one issue for the lockdown and wearing the masks and all that. Well, your safety and the other people's safety. But in that level of safety, we need to have a shelter. We need to have a roof over our head and food on a table. Well, food is number one basic need, and having a job and earning, having a job to earn wages to pay for the bills, to pay for the shelter, to pay for the food and for the water that comes at a basic second level, right? So it gets complex, right? And maybe that's why being stressed about doing a good job, or being stressed about not losing your job, causes so much stress and so much anxiety and a lot of mental anguish because of this very basic second level need, right? And in this second level, we also need to feel free from physical threat, right? And we also need to feel free from emotional harm. So emotional harm means anxiety, depression, don't insult me, don't make promises you cannot keep, don't tell me we're going to do something and we're going to do something else, constantly not liking what I'm doing, not approving, not feeling good enough. So again, this applies a lot to at work, to relationship at work. And relationship at work are complicated. But the relationship at home are even more complicated than the relationship at work. And the thing is that the relationship at work, we need to have a job, a relationship at work, so we can pay the bills, so we can have shelter and food to satisfy the level 1, right? But then here comes number 3, social needs that Abraham Maslow established, that people have a need to belong, have a need to for friendship, family, connection, relationships, and sexual intimacy, right? That's basic needs. Well, not everybody has the same need all the time, and so right here at this 3 basic level, this is where most of the people go about their lives, in this 3 basic levels, right? And let me see what's working here and what's not working. Just a second. All right, so some things are working here. All right, so level 1, 2, 3. Let me go back. It's less to click on. So level 1, 2, and 3. So a lot of people go about their life at these basic level 1, 2, and 3, right? But as we go about life, as we have relationships at work where we are valued or not so valued, where we provide something. Well, every job is important. If a job weren't to be important, the job wouldn't be available. So one title is not more important than the other title. It has a different paycheck, but it's not more important. Because think of farmers not harvesting the grain to make the bread, to have the bread for you to put on a table to feed your kids. So it's a very, very important job. So not only the jobs that pay 6, 7 figures income are the most important jobs. They're not. They're just different jobs. These jobs come where the reason they're paid such high amounts is that these people, they have to make a lot of decisions in a short amount of time that impact a large amount of people. The larger the amount of people they impact, probably the higher the paycheck in a private corporation, not in a government federal type of corporation. And I'm talking about the United States, not other countries, not other cultures. So here we are at work, stressed with boss because we do a good job and we're not appreciated. But then we forget that the boss has their needs, where they have a lot on their shoulders and a lot on their press, that they have to satisfy so many other needs at different levels that we're not aware of. And then we are at level 4, we are feeling not respected, not understood, not recognized for the job that we do. Well, we are recognized because we're getting a paycheck, right? To some degree, it gets more complex, but I'm gonna get to a point. I'm gonna get to a point with this. But then at home, this gets more mismanaged. And at home, we get into many more arguments than we get at work, because at work, we better be careful how we talk to the boss. Otherwise, the paycheck is going to be cut off. Then we're not going to satisfy level 1 and level 2. So at home, when we have difficulty in relationship, is that sometimes we have a bad day and we have a level 4 or a level 5 need, or our physical health might be not optimal, and then it fluctuates to level 2, and our spouse, our children, our significant other at home, at the moment of not necessarily argument, but at a moment of lack of flow and lack of fluidity in relationship, they are experiencing different need in that moment in time. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hour, evening, afternoon, and so on. And oftentimes there are conversations between family members, and one individual talks about their need for recognition, and the other individual talks about their need for sleep. And when these two needs are going to, they don't mesh, right? That's not a good example I gave. But what happens more often, people have health issues, especially now with physical and emotional threats. You come home from work overstressed from job, and you feel emotionally overwhelmed, or physically tired and emotionally tired too. And you're not up to providing, offering, engaging in the need of your partner, or what the children kind of have to. But even that becomes stressful, because at those moments you need to just quiet down and take care of your own body, your own physical body. And that might mean take a shower, that might mean take a nap, that might mean go meditate for 10 minutes, not smoking, not go for a cigarette, but just go take a 5-minute break to take care of your mind and of your body. And in a family dynamic, oftentimes taking care of the family's needs, especially when children are involved, both parents come home from work both tired, and one parent ends up laying on a couch watching TV to relax because they need to, and the other parent ends up taking care of the children's dinner and homework and all of that. So there's a lot of arguments that's going to happen. There's a lot of resentment gets built up when both parents are tired and there's so many needs to be satisfied at home, but one takes a break and relaxes on a couch and one doesn't. And it's not wrong that's what they do. They need to do that. They need to take a break. But what we need to do to make this relationship go smoother and better is to communicate what is our need in that moment. Like if you happen to be a parent or a spouse or a significant other that comes home after work, both of you come home after work, and both of you are equally tired, you can really prove, you can measure right away who's more tired than the other, because it doesn't work like that, right? But then someone has to tend to the dinner, to the kitchen, to providing for basic need number one, the air, the water, the food, all of that. There needs to be a conversation, a calm one, a calm one when we're not very tired, between the two of you, that says, I have needs just as you have needs, in addition to other physiological needs, because no two physical bodies are the same. One might be dealing with chronic condition, and one might not. One might be dealing with chronic conditions that are constantly affected and burdened with. One might be dealing with chronic conditions that are not constantly affected and burdened with. So there's a lot to take in consideration. And it's not about one having it harder or easier than the other. It's just about learning to communicate your needs, which takes a while to be able to identify your needs and to be able to express them in a positive, enriching way, nurturing way, right? And is that right? But then, other than people coming home tired, right? So we cover that. Now we go overall in relationship. When a lot of people are very happy to have their needs number 1, 2, and 3 satisfied, and they feel fulfilled, they feel achieved when level 1, 2, and 3 are fulfilled. They don't need anything more. They don't have esteem needs. They don't need social status. They don't need recognition. They don't need respect, reputation. They don't have those kind of needs. And then when the other side of the relationship, or the partner of this relationship, if they have this kind of needs, oftentimes the way they process this kind of, it can go in so many different ways. The individual on the other side of the relationship that is completely satisfied with level 1, 2, and 3 needs doesn't have a whole lot of capacity to understand your level 4 needs. Talk about level 5 needs? No way. And this is what a lot of relationships break. And I'm going to send you my PayPal. This is where you just got free therapy. This is the issue with relationships. Now, fixing it is not as simple as 1, 2, 3, but it's not that difficult to identify your needs, get your pain out of it. A lot of people will say, get your ego out of it. It's not the ego, it's the pain that it's not, maybe it's not acknowledged by your partner, that causes even more pain, right? And that ends up causing trauma when one let's assume relationship is 2 people, right? Well, relationships are more complex and not limited to just 2 people. So when one individual out of a relationship is going through some sort of pain, whether physical, emotional, mental, whatever. And the other side of the relationship, the other one doesn't, not necessarily that doesn't understand, because they cannot completely understand it, but if they deny it, it's like, you again, don't do that. That causes even more pain. You again. Well, yeah, me again, right? So, but also at the same token, the one that's dealing with difficulties, physical, mental, emotional, to have expectation of the other to constantly understand you and constantly tend to it, that's not realistic either, right? So there's many layers in between this, but if we understand that the take-home message tonight is that there are 5 basic needs. Well, there's a lot of layers in between, right? There are 5 basic needs. Not everybody conducts their life through all of the 5 needs. Some people are very happy at level 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Some people have need 4 and need 5. It's not wrong. This is what they need. But prioritizing need 5 over need 1 and need 2, I don't know about that, right? So let's see what Randy is going to enlighten us with. Randy?
Well, I think you've covered it pretty well. This is are you using this is not the hierarchy of needs, right? Or is it? It's not.
Yeah, this is Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm keeping
Okay.
us simple because there's something that people can refer to, is something people can Google and read upon. I mean, here's a little bit of snippet from my first book, Creating Ease at Life. There are many more needs other than that, but this is a good category to plug the needs into. Go ahead, Randy.
Well, one thing that I heard an NLP person say once, when 2 people are trying to communicate, especially if they're talking about something about their needs, which can be very difficult to verbalize for some people, and it's hard because a lot of people don't know what they need or what they want. Most of us know what we don't want, but what we want is a little bit harder to verbalize for a lot of people, including myself. So talking about what I need can be a struggle, but what this NLP practitioner said, that the basis of most poor communication, most bad, destructive, maladaptive communication in relationships, including marriages, is message sent is not message received.
Correct.
Message
Yes.
sent is not message received. So that a lot of marital therapists spend a lot of their time with couples basically digging out what is your intention and what's person A's intention and what does person B hear them say, because 99% of the time person B is not hearing what person A is saying, the basic message. They may hear the surface, like you're always a cheater, but they may not hear the basic message beneath that. If somebody says, I can't trust you because you always cheat, what is that other person hearing them say? And frequently it'd be things like, well, she thinks I'm bad, or he thinks I'm lousy, or he thinks I'm he thinks it's all my fault, stuff like that. And good therapists, marital therapists, then will dig out what is, and that's not just for marriages, that could be for any kind of communication, but particularly in families. So if we're going to promote the idea and the thought that we need to communicate our needs better, we, number one, need to figure out what our needs are, and that is, what do we want? Not what we don't want, but what is it that we want in a positive way? And how do we communicate that to the other person? Can they hear what's being said? I mean, a lot of times, good couples that I used to, when I was doing marriage therapy, when they would kind of be rocking along, one of them would say, "What do you hear me say?" And 9 times out of 10, they're not hearing it, because for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of it has to do with they're in their head, and they're trying to think of what's the response to this, as opposed to what the real issue is. So anyway, that's what I was thinking when you were talking about
Yes,
communicating needs.
yes, that's very good. And what I would like to point on that is that um, when somebody is worried about being cheated on, if we go a little bit mechanical over here, things are never that simple in a relationship. If we look at level 3, that's the level for belonging, friendship, family, connection, relationships, and intimacy, sexual intimacy. Um, Before that, we have biological needs, safety needs, and then we have a need for relationship and intimacy and all that. And it's very important to remember that you could have, let me put it this way, how can you have belonging and friendship and family and connection and relationships and intimacy if you don't have your biological and physiological needs satisfied, which means health issues, a lot of chronic conditions that go right here. But what do you mean by that? Well, there are people that can breathe properly. They need to take a lot of medicine to breathe properly. There are people with homeostasis, people with diabetes. A lot of people think diabetes is just about sugar, which is ridiculous. Homeostasis, this is what diabetes throws it off. So right there, basic level number 1, that's homeostasis. This is what somebody struggles with, right, in today's society. And then in level number 2, again, how can you have belonging and friendship and family and connection and intimacy if you don't have a shelter? If you don't feel secure about your physical body, your finances, your resources, your home, and all the other resources, your car too, and if you don't feel, if you don't have a freedom from being threatened, to have a threat of your physical and of your emotional well-being. So how can you have that, right? It's difficult to have that. But a lot of people get to that, they forget what comes first. And I want to remind people that are willing to hear it, what comes first. And when you're in a relationship and somebody is dealing with a level 1 and level 2, and for various reasons, maybe the mortgage didn't get paid, maybe the rent didn't get paid, whatever. But let's not just focus on finances. Let's look at health issues. Everybody has health issues. You go over 30, something aches. If you're about 4 years old and something doesn't ache, it's like, let me study you. Something doesn't ache, right? if you're in your 50 and you have no eggs, I don't know what you're eating and what you're breathing. It's just something's bound to ache. We are a battery and we're going to age. So when you're in a relationship and you talk about cheating and you talk about not understanding, and this is where the belonging, I will, for right now, without complicating it, because this can go on for 20 years, this discussion. Message heard but not, message sent but not received. It's level 3, connection, family, intimacy. Intimacy is not just sexual, although in the book I listed that sexual intimacy. Sexual intimacy is very important because it helps the body produce all of the good hormones and the good neurotransmitters, and you get to, well, if it's of quality, of course, and it enhances your well-being, right? If used properly, of course. So here's the person that has number 1 and number 2, level 1 and level 2 completely satisfied, and then I complain about let me go have an affair because I'm not having my intimacy satisfied. And then the other person, they're dealing with their health issues. How are you going to bring that to a balance? It's very difficult, because it's true that the person who's dealing with their health issues, they need to take care of that, and they need to allocate more of their attention, more of their resources to dealing with their health issues, as the other people that don't deal with their health issues, right? But then this other person, they have a right for intimacy because they don't deal with health issues. So how are we balancing that? That's a very difficult one, right? So there has to be the one that's dealing with a health issue. They have to be responsible for what they need to do, and assume responsibility for the work that needs to be done to make their health issues better. It's their job. And have I'm hearing some I'm hearing already, yeah, but my partner is driving me crazy and he's causing me health issues. Oh, okay, we're not gonna get in there. And then the other person has to be a bit more compassionate and understand that occupies a little more time. It's a burden. It's not a choice. It's not something the other person enjoys doing. It's a difficulty. It's a need that needs to be taken care of so they can function properly at your intimacy level, right? But going out there and cheating on people, that poses a health risk that touches up on level number 2, and the level number 2 is the safety and the security of your health. And why is that? Well, sexually transmitted diseases, and not just sexually transmitted diseases. Now there is all these viruses that you get viruses transmitted just by talking. You gotta stay 6 feet apart for when the viruses are in high alert, right? So forget about close contact. Just have someone talk and have their little bit of saliva transferring over the air. You breathe out over you got infected with a virus, and then you take it home to your partner, which is already dealing with a health issue. So that's a very, very difficult aspect to manage, to do therapy over. biology comes first. Intimacy does not mean biology. So there's got to be a meeting of the heads, and you make an action plan, make a plan for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. It's not as simple. I hear, and people already talking about it, but it's not as simple. But first things comes first, right? And then there's so many relationships, so many marriages where agreements are made. What types? Well, that's not to be talked about in public like this, because that can only be communicated to people that can hear it. Message, because what Randy said, message sent is not always message heard. Randy? Anything you want to add, Randy? Oh, Randy's camera seems to be a bit malfunctioning right now. All of this internet, the storm is coming over here. So what I would like to touch up on, number 2, is that
off on it, but one of the things in terms of trying to
go on, Randy.
Trying to improve. Let me check my second. Let me make sure my.
All right. So when, in addition to basic needs, and this is where the difficulties within covering different levels of needs, where relationship get in trouble. I'm gonna touch up a little bit on motivation, or what motivates people, because there's different levels of different layers of motivation. Like here's the Maslow's motivational model, right? So at the level to which people don't need to grow and don't need to expand, we have those, again, what motivates us outside of growth. What doesn't motivate our growth, and would be physiological needs, safety needs, belonging needs, and esteem needs, being respected, right? At this level of motivation, we're happy where we're at, and we don't need to grow as individual, and that's okay. A lot of people are good at this level of motivation. But then there's many of us that are motivated by learning new things, by wanting to know how things work, by wanting to know why, how, where, what, when, right? There are also people that are motivated by aesthetic needs, but having the world around them being more beautiful. And when I talk aesthetic needs, this is not fashion. There is a beauty to the world, and there is a beauty to the life overall, right? And then on top of that, people are going to be motivated to self-actualize, and in the end, a lot of people are motivated to transcend all of what's underneath, right? So relationship get complex, and they are complex at home as well as at work, because of this basic needs and because of this motivational pyramid too. Like someone at work, for example, is they have like employees, they're motivated at the second level, they're motivated at the paycheck. Their contribution is going to be of certain degrees, certain aspects, certain domains. It's going to cover certain domains. But someone that runs the company or someone that's a manager, they're going to be on a higher motivational level than an employee. So every manager and every leader, every bosses of a boss of a boss of a boss. There's so many bosses, all those hierarchies. They are motivated differently based on their title. It's not right or wrong. It's just how a job works. That's how it goes. And then the same applies to personal relationship at home. People are going to be motivated at home differently, physiologically, safety, belonging, self-esteem, having their values acknowledged. And then other people want to learn more, want to grow more, and want to have more beauty in their life, more emotional beauty, more mental beauty, more, and I'm not talking about weight loss and fashion. That's not what I'm talking about. Beauty is so transcending. And there's not that many couples, there's not a lot of couples that are going to be motivated by actualizing the relationship and transcending the relationship. Now, is that right or wrong? It's not wrong. It's just different needs. So, Randy, do you have any wisdom you want to add to this?
I missed some of what I'm saying because of my internet problems. Um, but no, I mean, you had mentioned earlier before I got cut off. I mean, before I got cut out, that how do how does one in your relationship, how does somebody address a problem like chronic illness or difficulties like that? And it's very interesting because it's one of the things that I was taught in marriage counseling is to look for who has control and who has power. And that shifts. There's not just one person that has power all the time, but it shifts. But who is the one that is that's got more control and power? And I'll give you an example of what we talk about when we talk about who's in control. Because a lot of people, if I would ask them, do you feel powerful in this relationship? They'd say, oh no, I walked all over him. I'm just a floor mat, nothing more. But one of the things, this comes from the 50s and 60s because it's a Jay Haley story, but he told the story of people going into to visit somebody somewhere, or they'd know somebody that had a couch or a chair in a living room that was the father's chair. That was the chair that dad and father or dad or father sat in all the time. No one else in all these houses, and this is very middle class white kind of stuff, but nobody else would sit in the chair but dad, and children could never touch it. And Jay said, well, how the father's at work all day, how do you keep Mom, how do you keep how does he keep the kids off the chair? And she goes, oh, I tell him not to stay off the chair. I'm the one that tells him about to get into it. Well, who has the power in the relationship? It's a very just illustration on who people can have more influence and more power than they think they do. Another example, just as an aside, was a couple that I saw getting marriage therapy, and the female of the couple was very, very, very educated, had a master's degree, and worked in an embassy, believe it or not. And she had married socioeconomically in a lower status. Her husband was a repairman of some sort. I think he was like an electrician. So she will spend her days around royalty, basically at the embassy. It was in D.C. She worked at one of the embassies in D.C. and those embassy ambassadors are royalty, basically. And then she'd come home to her husband, who was an electrician, and she would ring him out in the therapy sessions we'd watch, just complain, and jump all over him, and he kind of looked kind of haggard, like looked down. What am I trying to say? Like a sad little dog. But I'm trying to think of like a. Anyway, he was very, very downtrodden. The idea was to give him some of the power back in the relationship, because he obviously had none. And the strategy that they used, this is not self-help. This would only work for this one couple. But the strategy that what the therapist is given was that every time the wife started complaining about the husband, he was to get on the floor, literally get on the floor and say, just walk all over me, just walk all over me. And they did that in the therapy session. And the therapist that was doing it was hilarious. It sounds crazy, but it was a very crazy session. And he was making it into almost a plaything. And he, the first time they did it, the wife said something like, he doesn't know what you're talking about, to the husband. Said to the therapist, said, well, he's not going to do that. He doesn't know what you're talking about. And the therapist said, okay, get on the floor. She just made a complaint about you. Get on the floor, and he did. And of course, that made the wife go like this, and she didn't say another word hard for the rest of the session. She never returned, in fact, for the sessions. Some people would say that was a failure, but anyway, it was just an example of how power issues can become an issue too. I'm not sure if that's pertinent totally to what we're talking about, but it was interesting.
It's definitely. I love your stories that you bring from the family therapy and all of your years of practice in family therapy, and anything that comes from Chloe Modanes, I want to hear, and Jay Haley, I want to hear all about it. But you're right, because a lot of people are not. You brought up a good point. Often in a relationship, people are so not paying attention to the other person's needs, and for tonight only, let's just have that. Let the individual be responsible. So this is a hard topic of conversation. So both of us are quite courageous to discuss this out there. The takeaway for tonight is assume responsibility for communicating your needs, right? Expecting the other to understand your needs, it's gonna take. It's a longer road. A shorter road, it's you communicating, this is how I need, and then this is how it can be done, right? Without saying, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. Right? Look at work. In the work environment, you are told you need to do this and you need to do it because you are paid for it, but at home it's different. And even at work, in work, oftentimes you hear, this is what needs to be done, right? There is a goal. You need to get somewhere. You need to do, in order to get there, you need to do something to get there. Yeah, it's all the relationship. It's all doing. It's what, where, how, when, why, right? At work, the same at home. So in the example that you touched up on, Randy, having in therapy, having the partner lying on the floor and then having them kind of pretend to walk on them, that's a physical representation for someone to understand physically how emotionally run down somebody might feel. Some people cannot understand emotional needs. They can understand very little, and that is their needs are level 1, 2, and 3, part of 3, and then they're happy, and then they think that everybody else is satisfied with that, but it's no. So this is where the long road ahead is, when you try to make someone understand what they've done wrong and why they should have done differently, as opposed to saying, this is what I need and this is how we can get there. So identifying the needs, some of us, we know what we need. Some of us, we go, well, yeah, but don't they see it? It's not like that. They probably don't anymore, or they probably they're seeing it all the time that they forget, right? And it's good to be reminded. It's good to be. I mean, how often times do you have I don't have the glasses. I mean, yeah, what is the other glasses? I mean, how often times, I have my glasses over here. I'm like this, and then I'm looking for the glasses. Not these glasses, but that glasses. I'm like, I want my glasses, and they're here. I don't see them. Why? Because I have the glasses here so often, and I messed up my hair, and I'm so used to that I forget they're there. So going back to understanding the needs, understanding how we all have needs, and that we need to communicate that, and even within the same level of need, within the same level of need, everybody's going to have a different flavor within the same need. It's going to take us farther apart. But as we grow, we also have values, we have strengths, we have goals that we need to establish, that we need to accomplish, that we need to be reminded of, that there are some very simple exercises that we can go through, that some of them take 10 minutes, some of them take not even 30 minutes, that you go through a bunch of positive psychology exercises, like some questions that points your attention, your thinking into a direction to which is like, I never thought of that. Well, yeah, that's the purpose of the exercise, to have you think of things a little differently, to have a different perspective, because you need to change perspective every now and then. You change clothes every day, right? So you need to change perspective. Once you change perspectives, it's going to help you. Life is going to be more beautiful. Yeah, but we're talking about needs. But if you change perspective a bit, you're going to be able to better understand your needs and the needs that have evolved over time, and your significant other needs. So let's keep in mind the takeaway today. The takeaway today is that there is a hierarchy of needs, and it's true that we can and we do get to self-actualization and transcendence, even if not all of our biological and physiological needs are met. But let's understand that you need air, water, food, sleep, excretion, and homeostasis to move on to the next level of needs. Now, if the homeostasis is unbalanced, we can still go on, but you cannot go on without air, water, food, sleep, and excretion. You cannot. And how many of us don't sleep good enough, don't eat good enough? We eat a lot of junk and we sleep very few hours, right? And in number two, we need to have the safety. We need to feel safe about our body, have a home. Homeless people, poor homeless people. Have to feel good about our health. And even when we have chronic conditions, medicine has made such technological advancements, and we can still feel good about what we're doing, that we're doing all we can, and we're working on it, and we're paying attention 100% to what the biological, physiological needs are, so we can move further. But something that that's very little thought about right here at a level of safety and security of your being free from being threatened, having your physical and emotional being threatened. If you look at huge these big stars, a lot of them have to employ bodyguards to help them maintain their safety. And that's not a small thing. We might look at them as being on top of the world. They might have lots of money, and they may be very, very, very famous, but they always have the need of safety running in the back of their heads. That's a big deal. So fame it has become such a virus now. Everybody needs to be famous, but there's a lot that comes with it, and being famous is not all that glamorous as people think it is. For example, when Harry and Meghan left the Commonwealth, they left. By them leaving the Commonwealth, they didn't get a paycheck anymore, right? So they didn't get a paycheck anymore. They didn't have, their jobs. They left the Commonwealth. They left their jobs in a Commonwealth of UK, and they were constantly threatened over their safety, over their physical and emotional harm. So how how do you go about life from there? So everybody wants to be famous, and it's glamorous. It's not as glamorous. It's not as healthy. It puts a big toll over your physical well-being. Anxiety will put a great toll. So so now people might argue that Henry and Meghan shouldn't be doing a documentary. Well, they need to earn a paycheck to pay for the security guards, right? Not just for food and for medicine, they need to pay for the security guards. Why? Because it comes with the territory. Being this famous, it comes with the territory. You have to hire security guards. And lately we're hearing people being burglarized. Well, we hear about famous people being burglarized, and although they have people, they have security people on their payroll, or people stealing their dogs or their cat, or breaking in their home and hurting their significant other. That, I don't care how famous they are, it's right there. Level 2, that of a safety is being threatened, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal. Randy, do you want to add something?
I mean, it's been a long time since I've looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That goes back to my college days. But as I recall, and as I remember, what he was saying was what it's just like you're saying, that it was really what I'm remembering was geared more to individuals. But still, it goes to what you were saying, that and what you're saying basically is just as a interpretation, I think, that makes sense to me about it, that there are certain things, certain needs that have to be met before a person can move up this ladder of living. And it's very debatable about Maslow's stuff because the top rung is self-actualization, and that was never really well defined as I understood it. But anyway, this point, like you're making, is very, very true. Makes a lot of sense that people can't focus on their complex emotional needs if they feel unsafe, if they don't have a place to live, if they're worried about money, if their neighborhood's safe. And in actuality, social work has done that for many, many decades. Medical science, medicine, has just now discovered that one of the reasons that a lot of people don't get better physically is because of exactly what you're talking about, Carmen, that there are other needs that are not being met, so they cannot and they cannot recover physically. And it's now called, a lot of people, some people may have even heard of it, but it's called the social determinants of health. What is the social factors that impact our health? So that if I'm living in a very stressful environment, whether that's because of a family or a neighborhood or issues, I can't pay my bills, which is very common, got tons of that kind of stress, is going to factor into our health, and it's going to prevent us from moving farther in our own personal growth. And that's really what, just re-saying basically what you're saying. But it's very interesting that some of they encourage medical. It's not unusual now for somebody to go to their nurse practitioner or their doctor, primary care doctor, and the doctor want to know, well, how are you doing otherwise? What's life like? How are you? How are you spending your free time? What's your biggest stress in life? And frequently it's not health. But anyway, it's just kind of, it reinforces exactly what you're saying, that that kind of stuff has to be addressed and met first before the more complex needs get met.
Yes, yeah, definitely, definitely, it's important, and it's a good point. So we can talk about relationships until the end of this live podcast, but it's always such a good topic to cover. And relationships are the most complex existence of all the existence here on planet Earth, because they are. They're difficult, and if you have difficulties in your relationship, just understand that it's normal to have difficulties. What's not, no, it might be common to blame the other. It might be very common, but let's try to step away, to step away from that, and just learn to communicate our needs, to make our needs met, and by making statement, this is what I need, and maybe this can be done this way. What do you think? Because sometimes you can take out of your own needs a lot of time, and sometimes you might need someone else's help to help you take care of that need. And when that is so, let's communicate. Let's communicate and turn it into a project. Turn it into a other than remodeling. That might be putting a lot of stress on someone. See, that's an aesthetic need right there. Remodeling the house. That's not a shelter need. That's a motivational. What is that right here? Remodeling, it goes right here into aesthetic needs and in the motivational, right? So yeah. So it was a good talk. Thank you, Rady, for tonight. It was a good talk. Let us have your question. Type in your questions in the comments. We'll address it next time. Email me your comments. Reach out to me on my social media and email me your comments. And definitely click subscribe. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be famous. I don't have what it takes to put a bodyguard on a payroll. So no, I don't need to be famous. But I do like to know your thoughts on it, what your questions are, so I can have better conversations with Randy. Me and Randy love doing this and bringing you good content. So tell us what you would like to know. That's a big question, isn't it? All right, so this was very good. Randy, is there something you want to add before we go?
The only thing that I would add is that if a person's having difficulty articulating what they want, that hypnosis can help with that, because there may be some psychological blocks that are keeping somebody from knowing what they want. So it's something, and I hate to, not just hypnosis. Hypnosis is one tool. Journaling, meditating, taking 5 minutes of mindfulness, and all that stuff. There's millions of instructions on that on the internet. YouTube has hundreds of thousands of stuff that address that. So it's extremely easy to access, and it's very, very helpful. So yeah, that's all I'd say.
That's true. You bring a good point. And now we should talk about hypnosis a bit more often, because both of us are hypnotherapists. And also my website has plenty of resources for you to use it to work with. There's so many tools on my website that are going to help you um, with identifying your needs, your growth needs, your individual needs, your pain point, and there's a lot that I already have available as of right now, ready to go, and there's a lot I'm working on to make available, to make more tools available to you. So check it out. Check it out, and hypnosis. It's that is couple hypnotherapy. You can do, there is a conversational couples hypnotherapy that works wonders. It's not just he said, he said, but actually that could be a good topic of podcast next time. Maybe Randy, we can talk about couples conversational hypnotherapy. That would be a good topic. We could have fun with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. All right. So thank you. Tonight it was a good night. Stay warm out there. Stay alive. Stay warm. Click on like, subscribe, leave a comment, visit my website, visit Randy's website, and definitely let us know what your thoughts are, what you would like to touch up when it comes up to relationship. If there is a situation, maybe we can give some general overview of it. When it comes to individual advice, well, that's why we have to see you in person, because a lot of things are very sensitive and it cannot be made public. But if you have a question, we're not going to make your identity public. We can just have a good conversation on that, and maybe it could be useful to you. So thank you very much, and we'll have a wonderful evening and wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. All right, good night.